All right, we've spent a lot of time talking about the boys on the Kentucky Derby trail. We really haven't talked about the girls in the Kentucky Oaks trail yet. And this past Saturday, there were three excellent races for the girls. Three excellent Kentucky Oaks prep races spread across the country. We'll start our look at those three races now with Monomoy Girl winning the Grade 1 Ashland. What really jumps out to me when I look at Monomoy Girl's past performances is just her versatility. I mean, you see she started her career on the grass, won both of her races there, switched to the dirt where the money is, didn't miss a beat, actually, really stepped her game up on the dirt. She's won three stake races on the dirt, two of which graded. And not only the versatility with surfaces, but even more impressive with that is the versatility with her running style. You see in four of her races, she's gone right to the lead. In two other races, she's come from way in the back of the pack. The Grade 2 Rachel Alexandra, she won that from last. I mean, it was a 7-horse field. She was last at the first call, last at the second call, and came rallying around the field to win. She won the first start of her life, also from well off the pace. So you've got really remarkable versatility for Monomoy Girl. Another interesting thing to note before we really get into the race, her only defeat of her career came in the Goldenrod at Churchill Downs, and you'll kind of notice that race actually produced her fastest Briz figure. I kind of want to show you how good a performance that was against the clock now. Let me go to the chart for that day. That was November 25th at Churchill Downs last year. All right, you see the chart for the only race that Monomoy Girl ever got defeated in? It was the Goldenrod. It was run on November 25th, going a mile and a 16th on the dirt at Churchill. They ran the race at 4:50 p.m. You could see just 1 hour and 8 minutes later, they run a Grade 2 race for 2-year-old boys, same surface, same distance. And what's very interesting to note is that the girls actually went, you see the final time here, the girls actually went just barely over a full second faster than the boys did. And, this wasn't some real slouchy group of boys, in the Kentucky Jockey Club. Entice, the horse who won this race, was 6-5 on the morning line in the Wood Memorial, actually run second. There were 6 different horses among the Kentucky Jockey Club boys here who come back and have won a graded stakes since. So you see Quip here. He won the Tampa Bay Derby subsequently. You got Bravazzo. Bravazzo won a Derby prep race at the fairgrounds 2 back. So, I mean, this is, promises fulfilled. Won the Fountain of Youth over, he beat Good Magic in the Fountain of Youth. So this was a solid group of boys. Now, there was a horse that clipped heels and a rider went down, and it was kind of a roughly run race. You had a lot of horses had some trouble. Promises Fulfilled kind of had some equipment issues. You see he was getting out first turn. But there's just a point I wanted to illustrate is that the one time they were able to beat Monomoy Girl, they ran exceptionally fast to do it. It was a real promising filly named Road to Victory who wore her down and beat her. And, Road to Victory hasn't made it back to the races since. So, she might have had an injury or something happen subsequently. I mean, you can maybe check on Google and see, but it was a very fast performance, and it took a very good effort to beat Monomoy Girl the one time she was defeated. She was defeated in fast time. She's a quality, very high quality 3-year-old filly. Okay, Monomoy Girl was, 1-5 in the race. The bettors were all over her. There wasn't much early speed on paper, and you could see she has some. Where Eskimo Kisses was the 5-1 second choice in the race, every other filly in the Ashland was double-digit odds. The bettors really saw it as a 2-horse race between these two horses, and a strong edge was given by Monomoy Girl. The bettors were correct. It proved to be that way. Monomoy Girl won by 5.5. Eskimo Kisses was 7.5 lengths clear of the third place finisher. So third place was beaten 13 lengths in the Ashland. Now, one thing to note about Eskimo Kisses, first of all, she debuted at 1 mile and a 16th on dirt. Her trainer, Kenny McPeak, just has to be convinced she's a pure two-turn dirt horse, and that opinion, is obviously, been proven out, at least a two-turn horse. He didn't even bother with trying to run her in sprint races, and you could see why based on how she's run subsequently. But the one time she run on a sloppy track, she really freaked and run the best number of her life. Won by 11.5 lengths at 6-1 odds from well off the pace. I just wanted to point that out just in case you see a sloppy track in the Kentucky Oaks. She's the kind of horse that'll move up on it. So with that out of the way, let's go watch the Ashland. All right, and here's the tape of the Ashland. You can see we got a new subscriber here. Breaking from post position number 1 is going to be Monomoy Girl. Post position number 2 is going to be Eskimo Kisses. Watch the aggressiveness from Florent Giroux, the jockey on Monomoy Girl early. He puts her in the game, pushes her along to get the lead, and once she establishes the lead going into the first turn, it was all over but the shouting. That said, there, see her in the kind of green silks there. She didn't break on top, but aggressive ride by Florent Giroux. He sends her through there. Had he not done that, he could have got boxed in behind horses. Had he been more passive, it was a very good tactical ride here by Florent Giroux. That move there won him the race. You see, now instead of being boxed in down here and having to worry about all kinds of traffic and the other jockeys in the race trying to race ride him, whenever you've got a 1-5 favorite, the other riders want to put a target on you. 24 flat first quarter, no pressure for Monomoy Girl. And look at poor Eskimo Kisses back here. I mean, she's way in the back. She needs pace to run at. She needs this Monomoy Girl to take pressure. She didn't get the circumstances that she needed to give her best shot to win this race. With that said, Monomoy Girl was dazzling in victory, as you'll see. But keep this in mind for Eskimo Warrior. She gets a sloppy track, and you get all these nice fillies try to hook up early in the Kentucky Oaks. She'll have a fast pace in the Oaks. She's going to surprise some people, this horse back here in the Kentucky Oaks, Eskimo Kisses. But back to the front end, great ride by Florent Giroux. He really won this race with the aggressive tactics at the start. Took away any chance of the other riders in the race boxing them in and race riding them. And this is dazzling. Look at Monomoy Girl here. Florent Giroux just hand riding. Really hasn't gone to any heavy pressure. And she is drawing off with disdainful ease. Eskimo Kisses made a big wide move on the turn and, ran a very honest second. I like the second place finisher. This Eskimo Kisses is a neat little filly. She's going to get an extra 16th of a mile to work with in the Kentucky Oaks. Her connections can do the rain dance. And, if there's a lot of pace and a lot of pressure up front, Eskimo Kiss is going to surprise some people. But Monomoy Girl is very versatile and very talented. All right, we move along here to the West Coast. The Grade 1 Santa Anita Oaks was won by Midnight Bisou for Bill Spar. An interesting thing about the Santa Anita Oaks, the final time here, you see 1:44.3. It was the slowest final time for a Santa Anita Oaks since 1982, when Blush with Pride actually won this race with a slower time than that. So slowest final time in 35 years, but Blush with Pride, the last filly who won the Santa Anita Oaks with a slower final time, she ended up winning the Kentucky Oaks, a month later. So don't get too hung up on this final time because the track was very, very slow at Santa Anita on Saturday. Now, Midnight Bisou, you see an interesting thing to note about her. Her sire is Midnight Loot. Yesterday on the Steve Bick radio show, Bob Baffert was being interviewed, and he said Midnight Loot was one of the 5 best Baffert said Midnight Loot was one of the top 5 horses he ever trained. So that's a strong statement. And I'll tell you what, Midnight Loot, he run 123 Beyer in the Forego. He won the Breeders' Cup Sprint twice. It was a very nice horse. I mean, he had some trouble around 2 turns because he had a throat issue. And Baffert said that if he didn't have that throat problem, I mean, he would have been a sensation. He was Midnight Lou was the son of Real Quiet, who won the Kentucky Derby, won the Preakness, and came within a dirty nose of winning the Triple Crown. Victory Gallop nailed Real Quiet in the last jump of the Belmont, to keep him from winning the Triple Crown. So you got Midnight Lute as the sire, but the thing I want you to note about Midnight Bisou, she's out of a dam called Diva Delight, who was sired by Repent. Now, Repent was a Kenny McPeak trained horse. He was a pure 2-turn dirt horse. Down here with Diva Delight, you see she debuted at 4.5. She didn't win at 5.5, didn't win at 5.5, didn't win at 5. Finally, she won on a sloppy track here. But, Repents, they're usually always 2-turn dirt horses. And you could see when this horse, Diva Delight, ran beyond 6 furlongs on dirt, she was 7 for 7 lifetime coming into the Black-Eyed Sioux. The first time she did it, she ran 6.5 on the dirt here, won by over 4 lengths. The second time she run beyond 6 furlongs on the dirt, they stretched her out to a mile. She won by 8 lengths. So 2 for 2. This was a grass race. This was a grass race. This race here, you see the X with the circle through it. That means the race was supposed to be on the grass, but because of weather conditions, they took it off and moved it to the dirt. So this is a dirt race at a mile. She won by 7.5. Come back at 7 furlongs on the dirt, won by 2 3/4. She won her stakes debut by 1 3/4. Run again a mile and a 40 on the dirt. The Suncoast Stakes at Tampa, win. Win the Grade 3 Florida Oaks by 2 lengths. Here you see they run her on synthetic. The A with the circle means it was a synthetic track. Keeneland had poly track in the day. So she was 7 for 7 in dirt races beyond 6 furlongs. Her only defeat, they ran her in the Black-Eyed Susan. That's the basically the girls' version of the Preakness. They always run this race the day before the Preakness Stakes at Pimlico. And, she was at her customary position back in the pack, and she clipped heels early and fell with Julian Le Peru. Diva Delight unfortunately went down in that race. It was the end of her racing career. But it wasn't the last we heard of her because she was bred to Midnight Lute, and that give you Midnight Bisou. With that said, we'll go watch the Grade 1 Santa Anita Oaks from Saturday. She was the 3-5 favorite, and she got the job done with big margins between them. 1 by 3.5 was another 3.5. So third was beaten 7. Fourth place was beaten 14 lengths in the 9-horse field. Let's go watch Saturday's Grade 1 Santa Anita Oaks. All right, here it is. The tape is all queued up to the start, and we've got Midnight Bisou as the 3-horse. That said, we're going to run it. You see, she broke good. She broke pretty well there. But the rider, sensing a quick pace here, kind of lets her settle in, and she's only gotten 1 beat in the run to the first turn. She's kind of caught a little wide. Right here, you'd be a little worried, is it better that she might be a little bit too far back. And when you see the first fraction, you're going to be even more worried. But you have to keep in mind, see 23-2, and she's only got 1 beat. The Bob Baffert filly is just loose on an easy lead. Baffert's horse is out there all by herself without pressure. So it might have been a little concerning if you bet her at this stage. If you bet her at this stage of the race, you might be worried. But this is a slow track. I mean, this isn't like your typical 23-47. I mean, that's they went 47-3 for the half. That's like a 46 on a typical Santa Anita track, just because this surface is very deep, very slow. This was the Santa Anita Derby day when Justify and you see her. Look at her move now. This is a tremendous move. She's running by horses like they're tied to a post right here. 3 wide and just catapulting past horses. She's into 4th right now, out in the clear. She's just picking them up and laying them down right now. Very impressive move there by Midnight Bisou. I mean, that was her sire, Repent, used to, she kind of reminds me a little more of Repent than Midnight Loot, but she is a daughter of Midnight Loot out of a Repent mare, and she's drawn off nicely. This filly here, Creator, run very, Spectator, run very nice in defeat. But it was all Midnight Bisou. Now, yes, the final time was the slowest in the race in the last 35 years, but look how far this field stretched out here. Don't get too, carried away with that. Look at these horses. It's a grade 1 field on the West Coast. They're spread out. I mean, there's horses staggering across the wire. I mean, a very tiring track. Don't worry about the time. But, Blush with Pride in 1982, she won this race with an even slower time. She won the Kentucky Oaks. Maybe the track was real slow then. I don't know. I was in diapers in the year 1982, so when Blushing Pride won, but she went on to win the Kentucky Oaks after winning in a slow time. Midnight Bisou was very impressive. I mean, visually, she was very, very impressive. All right, and last but not least, we move along to the Gazelle at Aqueduct. It was won by the Mark Hennig trained Gray Tappet filly, My Miss Lilly. You see, she took a big step forward here in the Gazelle. It was her 4th lifetime start. Interestingly, I know a little bit about this Damn Wicked Deed. She was a Steve Asmussen trained horse. She run nowhere in her first 2 career starts as a maiden, really didn't show much. And then, she made a giant step forward in race 3. She won her 3rd career start, made another forward move, won her 4th career start, and again won her 5th career start. Was just improving all the time and started to look like a very, very interesting filly. After she won her 5th start, she hadn't gone really beyond 6 furlongs, if I recall. And she looked like the kind of horse that was going to be, a daughter of Parlin's Holiday. It was going to be very interesting stretching out. But she was apparently sidelined after that. You see her resurfacing in the pedigree of My Miss Lilly, $670,000 Keeneland September yearling purchase. An interesting thing to note, the fastest of these 3 Kentucky Oaks prep races on Saturday, as far as Briz figures goes, it was clearly My Miss Lilly in the Gazelle with the 99. As far as buyer figures goes, you see she only got a 92 here. It was actually Monomoy Girl had the fastest buyer figure with 95. And if you look at the Timeform US speed figures, all 3 preps were very, very close on Timeform US speed figures, but it was actually Midnight Bisou who had the edge by 1 point over the other 2 fillies on Timeform US. So, 3 different figure makers, 3, each had a different horse as their overall fastest. Now, very interesting thing to note here. You see the Gazelle, the very next race, run a half an hour later, was the Excelsior, a grade 3 race for older males. You look at the final time, the Gazelle went 3/100ths faster. And the paces were close to being identical. They went a little quicker early in the Gazelle. The boys kind of turned it on for the 3rd quarter, and then the girls come home a little faster. So I was a little surprised by it. I've got the video editing software where I could get the accurate time of the race, and I could tell you with 100% certainty these 2 races are timed correctly. The fillies did indeed, down to the 100th of a second. I had it just as the clock did it there. So no timing malfunction. You can believe what you see there. The girls did go faster. Now the Wood Memorial, the girls in the Gazelle only went 63/100ths of a second slower. It's about 3.5 lengths or so slower than the boys did in the Wood Memorial. I will say this: Vino Rosso, all the boys in the Wood Memorial had to carry 123 pounds. My Miss Lilly did only have to carry 114 pounds, as did Sarah Street, the 2nd place finisher in the Gazelle. So they got a 9-pound weight break from the boys in the Wood Memorial, which, these style figures don't bake weight into the equation, but like Thorograph and Ragozin will. So you'll see, 9 pounds at 9 furlongs is worth about three lengths or so on sheet style figures. So that'll make the margin between the Wood and the Gazelle a little bit wider. But My Miss Lilly, very, very impressive against the clock. Boy, the boys in the Excelsior, not so much. That didn't exactly look like a banner Excelsior, but tremendous performance by My Miss Lilly. We'll watch it now. She took a step forward. Sarah Street here, the Karen McLaughlin filly, she was out of Sarah Louise, a mare that was a rival of Rachel Alexandra as a 2-year-old. They hooked up, I think had 3 real good encounters as a 2-year-old. Anyway, with that said, we're going to go watch My Miss Lilly win the Gazelle impressively. All right, My Miss Lilly is going to be breaking from extreme outside post position number 6, the far outside post in the field. That said, we're running the tape now. See, she got away okay here. The 4 got pinched back. And there was very honest pace on in here. Sarah Street, the eventual second place finisher, the filly out of Sarah Louise, she went to the lead. Pletcher trained Mo Shopping, stayed on, run well. You see My Miss Lilly just settling in nicely. She's in a nice spot here. No horse has really got a clear advantage or disadvantage at this point, other than the 4 who had some early trouble. So a mild excuse for the 4 to this stage of the race. But they're going the solid pace for the distance. My Miss Lilly is sitting in a good isolated spot in 4th. I mean, these horses are scrimmaging a bit, but I wouldn't say this is like a hot and contested pace or anything up here. You see, Joe Bravo rides a really good race here. He doesn't get too excited. He stays cool. He's got My Miss Lilly poised, and she's going forward now. She's going to get hung 4 wide through this turn. We talk about her only carrying 114 pounds, and that might work against her on sheet style figures. Well, she went 4 wide, so, they take ground loss into consideration. She had a wide trip on the turn. So with My Miss Lilly, what she gets penalized for carrying such a light weight, she'll, the wide trip that she had will probably negate that. And you see a really good battle going on here between these 3 horses. They've separated themselves from the rest of this field by a long way. And My Miss Lilly is just going a little bit better. Very, very nice in victory for this Tappan filly. Her dam would take big step forwards for each race. And, here she took a big step forward, and she might have another forward move in her. One more thing I wanted to mention before we go. In the Busher, they went slow early, 24-2, 48-4, slow pace, and it was a 6-horse field. My Miss Lilly hit the gate at the start, and she kind of, she was basically in last behind that slow pace. She made an early move into contention, kind of got out kicked by fresher speed horses, and then came again for 3rd. So, I mean, she was really disadvantaged by circumstances in the Busher. Not so there. You see in the Gazelle, she broke just fine. She was wide on both turns, but she ran a very nice race. And what was her 2-turn debut, tapping out of Harlan's Holiday? I mean, that's a fine pedigree for 9 furlongs. You don't have to worry about the distance for the Kentucky Oaks. She just run 9 furlongs. So, My Miss Lilly, an improving filly. She run very fast, faster than the older males in the Excelsior. And there she is. I hope you enjoyed it. That was our look at the fillies. Thank you for watching.